world famous trombonist of the alto, tenor, and bass variety. He's going to play all three this evening, and I believe you will enjoy his presentation. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your goodness to us. Just thank you for your provision in every way. Just ask that you'd be with Mr. Smith as he presents to us. Give him real joy in performing. As we just really thank you for the gift of music that we can enjoy, such a wonderful thing from you. And just ask that you would give us your spirit this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. Please welcome Jeremy Smith.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's almost single digits, if not already, and there's probably a lot of other things you could be doing besides going to hear trombone recital. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. That first piece, Fanfare, was written by John Kinney, not Johnny Kinney. That was not Miss Laurie's fault. That was my error on that. So John Kinney was a British composer and still alive today, does a lot of writing for like film music and such. And some musicals as well. But he's very much into the kind of the modern, maybe even avant-garde kind of musical writing. And as you can kind of tell with this piece, he originally wrote it for the ringing of the bells in St. Mary's Church in Edinburgh, Scotland. And obviously we don't have the acoustical environment to have that reverberation, so he literally does give the suggestion of, play into the piano or do something such as that kind of at least creates maybe like a false reverb. So this was kind of the idea. I came up with that. And as you kind of hear it, you hear the overtones happening with the fanfare. So I think it's a really fun piece to kind of start a recital with. This next selection is a piece by Daetwyler, who is a Swiss composer. And it was a composer who kind of lived a lot in Germany and France, and was born in Switzerland and kind of ended up in Switzerland towards the end of his life. And on this piece, it has a lot to do with, in Switzerland there's obviously the mountains, but there's the instrument that kind of has put it on the country on the map is the Alphorn. And with the Alphorn, if you've ever seen one, it's basically a long tube with a bell on the end and a mouthpiece such as this that creates overtones. Okay, so in the musical instruments, for those of you who aren't brass players, you can play multiple notes in one position or one valve. So, okay, and that's, thank you. So the althorn is something that can do that, and you can have different lengths of althorns to be able to create lower notes as well. And so on this next piece, the Largo and Scherzo, I think he uses a lot of those techniques, something that you could maybe even say is like folk music in the sense of the traditional way of saying folk music. And so this next piece kind of has a lot of, the very beginning is Largo, so it's a little slow. You'll hear some overtones happening, but in the second movement it's much faster, and you'll hear you'll notice that my slide kind of stays in the same position while I'm playing maybe 7 or 8 different notes. And which brings me to this little guy, and this is an alto trombone. Has anybody ever seen one of these before? Oh, fantastic. All right, so you all look like you're in college still. So who's all, we'll be really informal tonight. Who's all music majors? Okay, who's here to get concert credit? Okay, that's good. I will try to educate you as much as I can. Alto trombone, okay? The first note on this, in first position, or what we call an open position, would be a B flat. Okay? So those notes, if I try to play those same notes on this, so here's the question of the day. These notes, were they lower or higher than these notes? Just yell it out. Lower. These notes were lower? Higher, okay. So that one note that I played was the B flat. Okay. And then here, this is called an E flat alto trombone. Okay. That interval a perfect fourth. Okay. So what's really nice about this piece of music is it's actually written in the key of E flat. So a lot of the notes are going to be very similar to like your E flat scale. You may be asking, okay, why would anybody write for this instrument? Back in Beethoven's era, and maybe even a little bit before that, the alto trombone was created, and it was used and designed. You'll see a violist will play in the alto clef. It's the same clef that I'm going to be reading off of for this. And as you maybe saw in the program, yes, there is a bass trombone, and that will be showing up in the second half of the concert. For now, this next piece, written by a Swiss composer, listen really carefully to the overtones that happen all in the same positions, and hope you enjoy this. And I should, since it looked like a lot of you are not music majors, that is not necessarily spit. It is condensation that I have to empty out of here. Okay, warm air causes the instrument to function, and on a day like this, condensation really gets built up. So I have to do that, and my wife doesn't like that I have to do that, but it's part of the business. Okay, here we go. As you notice, there's nothing up here other than me, trombones, speakers that we found 5 minutes before the recital, and this piano. So I almost kind of dubbed this, I'm doing like a series of 5 recitals at some universities, and almost dubbed this the All By Myself tour. Mainly because this is going to be all unaccompanied music. And what that means, obviously, is that there is no pianist involved, and one of the pieces will have an electronic accompaniment with it towards the end, I am fortunate tonight to have one of my former teachers play a duet with me, so it's not entirely all by myself. But with these kind of pieces, if you try to do an unaccompanied recital of just straight like what I just did over and over and over, you guys will get bored, okay? And that's, I've sat in audiences like that. And so that's kind of the goal here with this. That's not the goal tonight. It's going to be more of a, think of it almost like an experience of music that you may have heard similar stuff before or not. Which this leads me to the next piece, this A Prayer in Wings. Tom Zugger is a friend of mine in Ohio and teaches at a university near Columbus, and he's a very good composer. And with this piece that I found from him, it's a piece that involves passive piano. So what you'll hear, kind of what you heard on the first piece, I will literally be playing my trombone into the strings of the instrument, and it's again causing that reverb effect. And Tom was very deliberate and intentional on writing this piece. This A Prayer in Wings has to deal with the Wright brothers. Is anybody here from Ohio? Yes. OH. Ohio. Yes. Success. Okay. So this piece is very good. I like this piece a lot because it has a connection to North Carolina. My parents live in North Carolina. I lived there before I moved to Ohio for quite a few years. And with this piece, A Prayer in Wings, the first movement, as you see, is called Canto, and it's a prayer for the airmen. Okay, the Wright brothers that were getting ready to, in a sense, fly off of Kitty Hawk and try out this new phenomena that they had thought of. And so with it, you're going to you'll hear a very chant-like sound with it, and then you'll hear the echo that's maybe either caused by the other singers involved as they're led by the cantor. The second movement, called Wings, there's going to be a lot of rhythmic repetition involved. So kind of imagine while you're hearing this, almost like a motor building up, as it were. And then right when it's getting ready to take off, he brings back the canto piece for this last prayer. And it's almost as if the man whoever it was, whether it was Wilbur or Orville, was sitting there flying it. It's almost like this is the prayer going through his head. So this is A Prayer in Wings by Tom Zugger. maybe 5-10 minute break so I can switch horns. So if you need to stand up, do stuff, you can.
So I have to do. The only issue is smart music sucks. And so it like, have you ever used it before? It's garbage. It's no. If you use it, if you try to do like 3 takes in a row, like a third take, it won't process your notes correctly. You'll play the right thing very clearly, and like it also, especially when you're using the drum corps, they want to hear your volume, but here they level it out. So if you play a forte, it'll level you down to a mezzo forte. And then if you play a piano, it'll move you back up to a mezzo forte. Like the computer will adjust your sound so it's always in a mezzo forte. So then you get comments like you need to do the dynamics better, and everybody's like, you literally are. Like, it's terrible. And then we have to do this, which I am.
that piece, Trombone Institute of Technology, Michael Davis is a composer that, actually a trombonist first, and a composer who done a lot of stuff for the jazz world, and really the trombone world in general. The thing that kind of put him on the map was he was the trombonist for the Rolling Stones when they were using horns and all. So, and you kind of obviously hear that a little bit. So this piece that he wrote was for himself, and then also on bass trombone, this hunk of metal, was a guy by the name of Bill Reichenbach. Bill Reichenbach, probably the most recorded trombonist of all time. If you've watched any movie within like the past probably like 20 to 30 years, most likely you're going to hear Bill Reichenbach on bass trombone. Okay, legendary studio musician who still is active today, even, and is a guy that he's recorded with everybody from Frank Sinatra, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Buddy Rich, all these guys. Okay, so he's a very versatile musician. And the idea of being called Trombone Institute of Technology, one of the most foremost, probably in the top 3 to 5 schools for trombone playing is the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. And back in the 1940s, I believe it was, there was a trombone teacher there by the name of Emory Remington who kind of brought this idea of having trombone be a singing voice. Okay, and he kind of brought upon the modern idea of a trombone choir. Has anybody ever heard a trombone choir? Okay, it's literally probably like the closest sound. I hope that sound is in heaven. Really, it's just one of those sounds that like when you hear it and experience it and are part of it, it gives you goosebumps. So because of that, the Eastman School of Music kind of became known as like the trombone mecca, in a sense. So that's why the idea of Trombone Institute of Technology. Both of these gentlemen went to Eastman School of Music, so it's kind of a piece for that. And one thing I want to say, most of you know Dr. Kraft. He was my teacher at Grace College, and I graduated in 2010. And one thing, a good way to know how good your relationship is with a teacher is how well you stay in contact with them after you graduate. Okay, I've been out of college for almost 9 years, and he still is a mentor of mine, a person I can go to talk about whether it's music, whether it's about family or anything. And so hopefully each of you, it doesn't have to necessarily be a music teacher, but hopefully some of you, if not all of you, have some sort of teacher in your life that you were able to go to because, for one thing, he's been where I want to be, in a sense, in the music business. And so it was great that he was able to have me here, in a sense, and come back to Indiana, even though it's like single digits and all. But so kind of keep that in mind when you are working either with your individual private teachers or even just whether it's a gen ed kind of class. So this next piece that I have is written by another bass trombonist by the name of Raymond Premru. And actually, again, I'll spend a little education here. So, what's the one thing you notice different on this instrument from even his? Say it out loud, somebody. It's bigger. Okay. What else? Yes, 2 valves. Okay, these are called valves. What they do is they change the pitch of the instrument. Okay, so does anybody remember the first note that I played on my tenor trombone? What note it was? B flat. Okay, so I still get B flat here. Okay, but by adding that valve, in which his horn and my tenor can also do, it's called an F attachment. It can kind of move the overtone series down. Okay, I know it gets fun. But here's the fun thing about being bass trombone. The second valve takes it even lower. Okay, so you get. Okay, and that's the start of what we call the overtone series. Okay, so the bass trombone allows me to play lower. It is a bigger bell, as you mentioned. The bore size is also a little bigger. It's a meatier kind of horn. I can still play the same high notes that I can on that one. Nothing really changes with that, but it's just and you'll notice this hopefully in the second half that the sound of it will be just a little broader. I think that was, the one thing I was going to say is that what's really cool about the valves is it really does make you more lazy as a trombone player, okay? Because if you know trombone, first position's here, there's 7 positions on trombone. 6 is here, Okay. On a tenor trombone, the F attachment moves that note from 6 to first. So I can go, instead of going, I can go. And so there's step 1 to being lazy. Now, bass trombone, double lazy, okay? Instead of going, I can go. We'll just stop there. Okay. That's what's really unique about the bass trombone. Again, the double valve bass trombone actually was not introduced until probably like 1950. The idea of a bass trombone has existed since the alto trombone did as well. It's just longer tubing is what's really happening. You guys actually are somewhat fortunate because this bass trombone is kind of a prototype, you could say. It's a hybrid. Almost all of it except the valves, if you notice the valve coloring is a little different than the bell. The horn itself was made in 1970, which this bass trombone is kind of considered almost like the holy grail of bass trombones. But the valves they had on it weren't that great. So my repair guy in Columbus, Ohio, we started talking about some things, put on some new valves. This is probably like a 3 or 4 week old instrument. Okay, and you're the second recital I've taken this to. So it's one of those instruments where I'm still kind of getting used to what it does. I like it already and stuff, and this is just kind of letting it put it through the works. Okay, I'm doing a lot of talking. I do apologize. This next piece by Raymond, Premru, Prelude and Dance, was written by Raymond, and it was a piece that he wrote for a guy named Bill Harris, who was a very influential jazz trombonist. Raymond Premru was born in New York, moved to England to play with the Philharmonia Orchestra for quite a while, and in addition to playing in the orchestral stuff, he was a prolific composer, but also very good into the studio scene in LA. Probably the thing that he's most known for in his non-orchestral playing was he played bass trombone for the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club album. Okay, so that kind of can give you an idea again of the versatility that he can do. And he was a phenomenal composer with how he was able to write things. And so in this piece, you hear a little bit of a very expressive prelude-like sound, a very big bass trombone sound. And then as you kind of get along into it, the dance part, you get into some various jazz-like sounds. So here's Prelude and Dance by Raymond Premru. As I kind of mentioned before, unaccompanied recitals, they're kind of hard to do because there is just, you're playing a lot the entire time, and there's not really any time for break. And with that, you also kind of get pieces that are just odd sounding, and we'll kind of just say it that way. Pieces that sometimes don't make sense, that like the melodies don't really flow that well to the common ear, we'll say. And this next piece is kind of one of those pieces. I wanted to purposely program a piece on this recital that kind of made you want to think maybe about the second level of music, okay? You know, a lot of this music, even what I just played, the melody, like you kind of can follow along, the head kind of can go with it. This next piece, you might not be able to necessarily understand it at first. So here's why I bring that up. What I want you to kind of pay attention with is the repetition of stuff that you hear. Okay, this piece called Bravura by Samuel Adler, which, is anybody in here in orchestration class or have taken it? You guys offer that to you? The name Samuel Adler is kind of the man for the orchestration textbook for colleges. It's what I use. I know a lot of colleges still use it. Samuel Adler was a composer in Europe who came to America due to the Second World War, and basically he was the pedagogue of composition. Taught at the University of North Texas to start off with, then went to the Eastman School of Music, went to Juilliard, then went to the Eastman School of Music, and is now actually living in Ohio still. And he's, I believe, 98 years old and still composing. He just wrote a piece for Concerto for Tuba for the Toledo Symphony that was premiered this last October. So a very active composer still to this day. a lot of his music, like I said at first, it doesn't necessarily, once you kind of listen to it a couple times, it starts to make sense. And unfortunately, you're only going to be hearing this once, unless I do really bad. So try to hear a couple of the different the sequences. Music is really a lot about sequences, stuff you've heard before within the piece. And so kind of try to hear that a little bit as you hear this. It jumps around a lot. I'm going down from a pedal G all the way up to a high B natural that's above the staff. Okay, so a lot of that, and he wrote that purposely for the bass trombone on this piece. So I think it's a great piece. I kind of hope it's programmed a little bit more. It was written in 2012. So here is Bravura by Samuel Adler.
Also, one of the great things about doing an unaccompanied recital, the music is short. I think the longest piece I had on here was either 6 or 7 minutes.
And so when you throw about 7 pieces on about that length or shorter, you get done really quick. So this was hopefully a good time for concert credit. This last piece is a piece that honestly didn't know if I was actually going to be able to do tonight due to not knowing there were speakers. Hence why all this is up here. I can't think of what her name is in there, and she's probably like mouthing it to me and I can't hear it. That one. She came in and I said, hey, is there a CD player or anything? And so she kind of pointed me to where, okay, here's some speakers. And so this next piece is a piece by Frescobaldi. It's actually the oldest piece on the program, as you kind of saw with the dates and all. However, the arranger is a man that's very alive and well and still arranging. A canzona, Frescobaldi was an Italian composer, was very heavily influential to composers like Bach, J.S. Bach, Henry Purcell, and did a lot of writing for choral music and a canzona and that sort of thing. What's really cool about this piece is a man by the name of Ben van Dyck, who is a Dutch bass trombonist, went to his friend Eddie Koopman and said, hey, I want to play this canzona, but can you do some electronic stuff with it? Okay, and he came out with, I think, a really great piece. So this is the last piece for the evening. Once again, thank you. I know a lot of you had to come for concert credit, and I do appreciate that because I know there's stuff all throughout the semester, and the fact that you're coming early, not trying to batch it up at the end, is really good. So there's basketball game. My team right now for North Carolina Tar Heels are playing right now. We'd love to know what the score is and stuff. So you could have been doing a ton of things. And so I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. This last piece, Canzona by Frescobaldi, and then it'll be free to go.
Thank you.